Went on to StreamYard. The first comment that I see is she's on Judge Glanville time. I see. Exactly. I'm about 15 minutes late signing in, but here I am because the transcript is in. I'm going to go over the transcript with you guys. I was honestly a little like, oh man, I already went live earlier today. I actually messaged Thugger Daily to see if he wanted to go on it. He could read some of it because it's just kind of a lot to read, but he says he's out and about, but I might look at some of his highlights on it. Let me see here. Let me pull it up here for you guys. What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in and saying hi. This is it right here. The transcript. If you guys go to my YouTube, you can see it on screen. That's for the TikTok crowd. But it starts out with Judge Love explaining why she wants to have this meeting. Kind of interesting that they called it. He just called this with no explanation from the state here. But so the concern we wanted to bring to the court's attention was twofold. One, they want to have the opportunity to impress upon Woody, with representation present, that he faces. And we wanted to give him an opportunity to ask whatever questions he wanted to ask before he was we had to pull him into the courtroom when the jury came out. The second concern we have is, and this is Judge Love talking to DA Love talking to Judge Glanville, that she wanted to bring to the court's attention in line with the concern that I expressed on the record on Friday. And this is why they called the meeting. She didn't think, the prosecutors were concerned that, Woody was not being well represented by his counsel. And when you read through this, it's just kind of weird about, like, Caleb Bumpus and Melnick. Do they represent him? Do they not? When are they going to represent him? When are they going to stop? And I feel like that alone is, another judge is going to read this and just think that it was an unusual situation, and, Glanville handled it as he could. And then this is just going to be sorted out in the appellate courts later. And like I said, if there is a judgment or a conviction and ultimately a judgment here that is appealable, I'm not sure if this is going to be their biggest issue. It seems like they have like way bigger issues than that on appeal, but we'll see. But if anyone is just catching up or didn't catch my previous live, the trial is on hold right now because Judge Glanville kind of surprised everyone today and said those recusal motions against him that he'd already rejected, at least one he rejected in a written order. He said, actually, I'm going to be sending those to another judge. So that's a whole process that's now beginning, and we don't know how long that's going to be. But then he also said, I'm going to release the unredacted transcript. So we all waited all day for it, and now here it is. And there's funny parts to highlight, but the whole thing is 54 pages, and this starts with Love, and Woody's not in the room right now. Woody actually gets in the courtroom, or not the courtroom. This is in Judge Glanville's chambers. He comes in a little bit later, but she's explaining as it relates to testifying. However, I do not believe that criminal exposure is a concern. And then she's raising concern about the fact, this is DA Love raising concern about the fact that Woody's counsel told him, he may face criminal exposure when really he's been offered immunity, so he doesn't have anything like that. And this is basically what she said on the record. Frankly, when I read through this, I'm like, he could have just saved himself a lot of trouble if he just invited the defense to this or something. I don't know. The defense probably would have objected to having it in private chambers, but I'm like, dude, he should have just had this whole thing in open court. They basically, Love practically said a lot of this stuff in open court. But anyway, let me see how the question. And if you guys want to read it yourselves or get the link yourselves, it's on my page. But thanks, Doug. TikTok's popping off. We've got a kind of a small crowd on YouTube right now, but the algorithm might be punishing me for going live twice, but twice in one day. And this is the famous FU email that we heard about Judge Melnick or calling everybody a judge today, Attorney Melnick was talking about. He said, this is Love talking. She says, he sent an email to Mr. Steele and Mr. Shard with me and Simone copied, where he said, this is the communication that I received from Miss Love regarding Mr. Copeland. My response was, and this is DA Love's response, she said she wrote, whose interests are you protecting, yours or Mr. Steele's? Which clients are you protecting? Whose clients, yours or Mr. Steele's or Mr. Shard's? And then Melnick wrote back, you are going to get him killed, talking about Woody. You are making him a target. And he said, fuck you, is what he wrote in the email. And that was, and DA Love says, so given that his concern is that by testifying, at least the one that he conveyed to me in writing, his concern has nothing to do with the exposure from the state. So I think this will probably be an unusual, it doesn't completely fit in with all the case law that Judge Glanville was going over today about ex partes, but I think it's going to fit in with that a little bit. I don't think that anyone's going to see this as another judge is going to see this as egregious behavior that gets them recused, but we'll see. The first step is that actually being assigned. And as we made the point earlier, it's probably such that another Fulton County Superior Court judge, when he gets assigned to them, is going to say, I can't hear this because I know Judge Glanville personally and will. So it could go to another Superior Court. So it's really kind of no telling how long it's going to take. I mean, it could be a couple weeks. It could be maybe longer than that. Probably not longer than that. But the transcript will be, and the thing is, we're going to be hearing a lot about the transcript and cross-examination if we ever get there. But this is totally fair game for Brian Steele. Well, maybe not every single question, but they're going to be able to bring this up in cross-examination and question him about it if they can raise the full, if they can, lay the foundation, that kind of thing. But kind of been posting a few highlights on Twitter, some funny highlights, but we got to get into the meat of it here. And Miss Love says, if the interest that he is protecting is Mr. Copeland's interest, he did not convey it by asking what exposure does he face in testifying. In fact, if he's concerned that testifying will get Mr. Copeland killed and he is not communicating with us, he's communicating with counsel for defendants. It would seem that he knows a thing or something that we don't know. This is just the same concerns that she expressed in person at the hearing before this happened. So they're talking and going on. I'm not going to read it verbatim to you guys, but we'll get into the meat when Woody comes in. Glanville says he has the key, and this is before Woody's in the chambers. Somebody says they love you. LTL, Meghann, we love you, girl. Thank you so much. I love the love. Judge Glanville says he has the keys to his own freedom, and that freedom is if he just gives his testimony, then he's purged it. That's the contempt charge, and this is him talking to Bumpus, who's representing her, which is not unusual. This isn't. I mean, people who are saying this is coercion by a judge, it's I mean, Woody's not in the court, not in the chambers yet, but like I said, I think I don't see another judge, even somebody who doesn't know Glanville in another county, reading through all this and not just kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt on it. But we'll see. Maybe I'll be wrong. And whatever that testimony is, what we believe it to be, but we don't know what it is. We can't talk about it. We don't know what he's going to say. We have an idea. We know what he's told us. Bumpus says, yeah, this is DA Love talking. And right now she's the only one in the courtroom or in the chamber. She goes and gets Simone eventually. It's kind of hard it's kind of disjointed to read through it. And here's, because Love was up in arms about Mr. Melnick telling Woody that the prosecutors are going to hammer him. And Judge Glanville says, now to be fair, and I think Miss Bumpus as an advocate or anybody has got to tell him he's going to face some pretty significant cross-examination. And Bumpus says, yeah, I think that's what he meant. Because Love was implying that, when Melnick told him the prosecutors are going to hammer you, like hammer you is in charge you with crimes. But Bumpus is saying, no, Melnick just meant like hammer you in cross-examination. And Glanville's saying that's a pretty common thing for an attorney to like warn someone of. More back and forth. This is Bumpus explaining. She says the reason that he doesn't want to move forward with representation, what I have been told, if he decides to testify, is that he doesn't feel like he doesn't know what was said outside of his presence. So he doesn't feel like what was said outside of his presence. So he doesn't feel like he can adequately represent him or counsel him because he doesn't know what was told to the state because he wasn't there. And that's Melnick when she says that's why he doesn't want to move forward with representation. Somebody on TikTok, was it Taylor asked where the document is. I should link it in my profile. But if you guys go to my Twitter, I have it linked on there. I retweeted on there. I'm going to send out something on my mailing list with links to everything. But if you guys go to legalaffairsandtrials.com, I'm going to do like a whole synopsis and stuff that I send out. But it's you can find it on Twitter right now. But and Love says the only thing that he should be concerned about, I don't think prosecutors are really in a position to be telling defense attorneys like what they should be concerned about and what they shouldn't. But this is just in general, is the only thing he should be concerned about is the criminal exposure or the exposure that Kenneth Copeland has criminally. And there is nothing. There is literally nothing. The statute is quite clear that we can do to him about the only thing that would put him in harm's way is a lie and a refusal to testify after being ordered to do so by the court. So, I mean, some people were saying, oh, here's the part where they, imply it's okay if he lies. And she does later on. They're actually talking to Woody about, because he's talking about that. But, I mean, frankly, people lie on the stand all the time, and there aren't perjury investigations. And I think that's kind of what Love is getting to. But she prefaces this whole thing. Granted, Woody's not in the courtroom yet, but she says a lie would put him in harm's way. And by a lie, we don't mean like, oh, I think you lying. It would have to be, something obvious, because we can always impeach. But if he literally perjures himself, that's something different. We can't help that. We can't control that. We would only say, tell the truth. We don't care how bad it is. Just tell the truth. So, like he says, I didn't go down to the police station. And that, which is just, that'd be a total lie. But I think part of his challenge, Miss Bumpus, may be that you need to assure him, look, I'm going to be here. And if you think that they are asking you a question, they being the state or the defense, is asking you a question that's going to bring out other crimes, then he's going to be able to look at you and say, can I have a chance to speak with you? Miss Love says, that's exactly right. And Miss Bumpus says, see, but that's just it. No, he's not. It's kind of hard to understand here. Some back and forth. Love says, there's been an assertion that people are representing here that their biggest concern is his best interest. And then they are just not here. And Miss Bumpus is saying she's not in a position to do that. Yeah, because it is kind of, you're reading through this and it's like, so who is this guy's actual lawyer? And etc. Oh, somebody says my fan is kind of loud. Sorry. I'm going to keep it on. I guess I could turn the AC on, but we'll keep it on here for a little bit. It gets a little hot in here, although it's getting later in the day. But I think that's going to lend something to the unusualness and the unusual circumstances that led to them calling the ex parte. They should have just told the defense about it or even had the defense at it. But the defense confronting them, what was it, a few hours after it happened? Yeah. Because I remember when I had that interview with Weinstein a while back, they said that they couldn't, he couldn't say, wasn't willing to say that the judge was just never going to tell him about the ex parte. But, They're just talking. Let's get to the part. Let's get to actually Woody coming into the courtroom. This is before Woody gets in, but Kayla says, "Can I read this email that Melnick sent to me? I don't know if this will help you understand what he's saying." It says, "Hey, Kayla, I wasn't able to see Kenneth today. He went on Saturday and tried to talk to him before his flight." This is Melnick. Or Bumpus is saying this about Melnick. And Melnick continues, "But I have talked to his family. So at first Kenneth was going to testify, but now has decided to take the fifth. He may change his mind on Monday. If he does, then he's agreed to discharge me as his attorney." So his own attorneys are already talking over the weekend about the fact that Woody might change his mind and actually testify. This isn't out of bad feelings, but I was not present when he met with the DA's office, so I can't really help him with his testimony. That's the agreement to discharge him. And then he gave me the discharge and told me that if he decides to testify, then he's to sign it. This is Kayla talking to the attorney. Or to the judge. Love saying it's like you never know what somebody is going to ask, and if he's concerned about putting him in legal jeopardy, then it would seem like he would remain and allow Mr. Copeland access to counsel. Yeah, the whole thing's just kind of freaking weird. I don't know. So they eventually bring Woody in. And yeah, judge telling Bumpus she needs to stay. She needs to stay in court and keep representing him. Bumpus says, "I can't stay. How long is this going to take?" Love says it might take some days, and she's like, "Uh-huh." And I see that's just it. And I don't mean this is Love. I think Miss Bumpus is put in a precarious position. She's not the one that stood up and injected herself into this. This is Love referring to what Melnick did. They reached out to her and she did him a favor. But ultimately, it seems as if Mr. Melnick is stalling and attempting to delay and hamper and hinder our proceedings. And that is a problem because that has nothing to do with the best interest of Kenneth Copeland. And that has nothing to do with Kenneth Copeland's exposure if he testifies. So I think this is all stuff that another judge is going to read this and use it to justify Glanville holding this ex parte, while ex parties are discouraged and, should be rarely used, especially in criminal cases. Thing is, he should have told the counsel about this, but they confronted him about it a few hours after it happened. And now they're saying, or at least Weinstein told me that he's not willing to say that Glanville was never going to tell him about it. So that's kind of remains to be seen. But we're talking about here. Well, we'll get to where they actually bring Copeland in. Okay, so this is 9:33. 9:34. They go back in. Where's Mr. Copeland? Okay, so they're on a break until 10:03, and then Glanville comes in at 10:03, and it lists everybody who's there. They've got the DA investigators. Rashid Hamilton, he's the one who is accused of sexually harassing A. Bennett, and the deputies, the transport deputies from who were with Copeland. And Woody starts it out with, "Can you let him know I got a hearing problem?" And Kayla says, "Okay." He said he is hard of hearing. And the court says that makes two of us. I've got a hearing that's coming on the 27th of June. So I'll try and talk loud. Okay, Mr. Copeland, I just wanted to bring you over and let you talk with Miss Bumpus and see if there's anything you need to ask of your counsel or Miss Hilton or the state or the court before we bring you out this morning, because we would like to hear your testimony, and that is kind of where we are at this point. So that's how he starts it with Woody. Woody is now in the courtroom here. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks for your love on TikTok. Love how TikTok's like the casino with all the gifts and everything. So is there anything you would like to ask? Judge Glanville says, and Woody says, well, I want to speak with you personally that I have never been truthful a day in my life until I just made this statement right now. I don't comprehend none of this stuff that's going on. And Glanville says, well, okay, well, the only thing you can give is truthful testimony. I mean, whatever you know is whatever you know. I mean, that's it. And Simone Hilton says, and what we'll say, and Mr. Copeland and I, we have talked about this. I'm not sure what your concerns are, what concerns that you expressed to Mr. Melnick last week. But if any of your concerns deal with being locked up for anything, you can't, there's nothing that can happen. The feds, and Kayla says, well, that's not, and Hilton says, it is true. Bumpus says, no, I said that's not his concern. Ms. Hilton says, if his concern is safety, we need to know that. That's not expressed. So we don't know what the concern is. So that we can try to resolve this concern. This is what I'm saying. Mr. Copeland and I have had conversations before. This is Simone talking. I understand some of his concerns is potential criminal liability, hence why we gave you immunity. The federal statute of limitations, done. The state statute of limitations, done. So there's nothing. I researched it this weekend again. Both those statutes of limitations for what you and I talked about, which is in 2015 or before, done. You cannot be prosecuted for anything you testify federally or statewide. Immune, period. And if that is the concern, there is none because you cannot be prosecuted. The federal statute of limitations is 5 years. So anything in 2015, 5 years would have been 2020. Anything statewide is 4 years. It would have been 2019. Finished. Next concern. What may happen in the street, you know what we have talked about, what we can do as far as living and all that. We have had those conversations. So I'm trying to express to you, we do not want you locked up. We know how many times I've got to tell you that. I don't know how many times I've got to tell that to you, what I've got to say to you. We do not want you sitting in DeKalb or wherever they got you because of this. Probably mispronounced that. I know you wanted to talk to me on Friday because you walked into court. We weren't able to talk. If you still want to talk with or without Ms. Bumpus, I'm here, but we do not want you in custody. You will not, this order, I don't know if you kept your copy of the order, but this order says you are immune from prosecution, any of it. Literally, Judge, you might want to close your ears if you confess to a murder on the stand. If we don't have any other independent evidence outside of what you say on the stand, you are immune from prosecution from what you say in court. So again, I don't know what was communicated to you on Friday. I have no idea. But what the state has assured you, which I have assured you in our private conversation with Mr. Long, as I'm saying in front of Ms. Bumpus, as I told you, is that what this order says, and that is direct or cross-examination. That's Judge Glanville, and that is direct or cross-examination. Simone says again. So if you were worried about, and this is Judge Glanville talking now, and so if you were worried about what the defendants may ask you because they may know your business, but if they ask you about things that you might think you might have some liability with, you can't be prosecuted for any of those. And Woody says, I got family members watching this trial, and I don't want my nephew and them to hear the things that I may be involved in and think it's okay. Hilton says, but I think that's a separate conversation you can have with them as an honest individual. Look, nephews, I done lived the life that I don't want you to live. Don't go through what I've been through. But that's something you can have outside of being in jail, because that's a better conversation you can have with your nephews in person. But they shouldn't have to come to the DeKalb County Jail wherever you are being held in contempt. You can have that conversation with your nephews tomorrow in person. You can have that conversation with them. You can have the conversation with anybody. You know what's coming up this weekend. Why are we in jail? What are we doing? Woody says, but y'all did this intentionally. And Hilton says, no, we did not. You and I had this conversation, Mr. Copeland, on Friday morning. And Copeland says, you knew my child's birthday was next week. And Hilton says, but what did I tell you? When we met with each other, I said to you, you asked me, what is the one thing that's going to get me in jail? Didn't you ask me that? And what was my response? If you plead the fifth. And that is exactly what you did on the stand. Mr. Copeland, what did I tell you before I got to that point? I told you the whole time, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Hilton says, but I told you we were giving you immunity. Copeland says that I was pleading the fifth. No, you did not. Copeland says, I told you every day I was pleading the fifth. Hilton says, no, you did not. And we told you what he says, I told you my concern. Simone says, and we said we could give you the immunity. You said your concern is what they know about you. And when you said that, I said, well, you know stuff about them. And then I said, whatever your concerns are, we can give you immunity. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. We're at it's page 28 of DeKalb County. Thanks, Cindy. Yeah, again, you can watch the clip of Judge Glanville defending this. This was before he released the transcript on there. But I have this linked on my Twitter. And then if you go to legalaffairsandtrials.com and sign up for my website, I'm going to send this out tonight with a synopsis of everything. Excuse me. Simone says, and we said we could give you immunity. You said your concern is what they know about you, right? And I said, whatever your concerns are, we can give you immunity. And Woody says, so I didn't tell you I lied on them to get myself out of the situation. And Simone, this is incredible that this is their state's witness. And they were just like, yeah, we got to get this guy on the stand so he can tell the jury what a liar he is. It's like, I don't think this is very actual helpful testimony for him. But Hilton says, you said you were a liar. That's what you said. You said you were a liar. And Bumpus asks, was this recorded? And Simone says, no. And Bumpus says, did he ever say that Melnick was his attorney? Hilton says, no. This week, when we first met you in the car on Friday, we asked you, is Mr. Melnick your attorney? You said, he's not my attorney. I haven't even talked to him. And Woody says, no, I never said he's not my attorney. I said I haven't talked to him. And Simone says, you said he's not your attorney. You haven't talked to him. Then we continued to have a conversation. At no point did you ever say to us, hey, I want Mr. Melnick here. Hey, put Mr. Melnick on the phone. Woody says, you didn't make me feel like I needed him. Simone says, but if you needed him, we would have said, if you would have needed Mr. Melnick, we would have said to you, okay, just call him. So, I mean, that is our position. We don't want you in jail. We just want you to be able to purge yourself by testifying. Whatever your truth is what your truth is, but you've just got to answer the questions. We believe that whatever your truth is, what your truth is. We know what you said before. I don't know what you're going to say on the stand, but what we know is pleading the fifth is going to have you in custody. That's what I know. Now, how you answer your questions is how you answer your questions. I know what you said before, and I know what you said later. I mean, I know what you said before, and I don't know what you were going to say on the stand because you and I never went into full details about any of it. But what I don't want is you to be sitting here in custody. And Woody says, you did it. And Simone says, I did not do it. You did it by pleading the fifth. Woody says, you told me before you went to the judge with whatever the thing called you went to him with. You told me that I can't, when I'm asked a question, I can say, I don't recall or I don't know. You told me that if I plead the fifth, I mean something. Why would I plead the fifth to something I ain't do? And I said that you don't know what I did and what I ain't do. And then you was like something. And then you all asked for this immunity. And I was like, it was something. And then Thursday or Friday came. And then you all go tell me, oh, we went to the judge with this. So you got to testify. If you don't testify, the judge is going to lock you up. And Simone says, right. But that was based upon what he says, but I told you all that. Simone says, no, you didn't. Woody says, you said, why would I plead the fifth to something I didn't do? And I said, you don't know what happened. And Simone says, and I said, I don't know what happened. Only you know and them know. I said, but you never said, I am pleading the fifth. You said, what if I do this? What if I do this? What if I do this? Woody says, I told you. I said I'm going to plead you said, why would you plead the fifth to something that you know you didn't do? And Kayla Bumpus says, so if you didn't have immunity prior to, is that what you're saying? That you feel like he didn't have immunity prior? And Copeland says, immunity came Friday right when I went to jail. Simone says, the immunity came after Mr. Melnick. Kayla, hold on. Simone says, the immunity came after Mr. Melnick sent us an email saying, my client is pleading the fifth. That was on Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Kayla says, okay. So after that, this is Simone. After that, that was an emphatic, he is pleading the fifth. Kayla says, uh-huh. Simone says, we came in, we got this signed. Kayla says, uh-huh. And then Friday morning came, Simone says. Okay, Kayla says. So between Friday evening, Mr. Melnick reached out to us, and he represents him. He's pleading the fifth, Mr. Bumpus. Okay, when was the last time you talked to him before Miss Melnick got involved? Miss Hilton. We talked to him earlier that day on Thursday. Kayla says, okay, and then how did, speaks inaudibly to Woody. Woody says, he called me. Kayla says, okay, I was just trying to get a timeline. Simone says, sure, right. So we have been talking since last Friday. So I met with Mr. Copeland last Friday, I think out in the neighborhood. And then he came on Tuesday for court. We talked briefly on Tuesday. And then on Wednesday he came. Woody says, Thursday. Simone says, no, I think he only came 2 days. So it had to be Wednesday and Thursday he came. It wasn't Tuesday. It was Wednesday and Thursday he came. And then on Thursday, once we left, is when Mr. Melnick reached out to us and said, my client is pleading the fifth. And at that point is when we went the next morning and got the immunity motion. And then we spoke on Friday morning. I handed Mr. Copeland this agreement and let him know that he has immunity and that anything he says we can't use. And then Mr. Melnick came, and then we had court. Mr. Kayla says, so you were pretty much saying you didn't ask for this? Woody says, I didn't. Simone says, but we gave it. He doesn't have to ask for it. Kayla says, I know. I mean, he's just saying. Simone says, right. He doesn't have to ask for it. But to alleviate whatever his concerns were, we gave him immunity. Excuse me, Kayla, or Simone says, we didn't have to, he didn't have to ask for it. You know, they can just give him immunity to alleviate his concerns right now. Let me see here. Kayla says, but if he wouldn't have had this, I'm just saying this so he can understand it. I'm walking him through. Simone says, uh-huh. Kayla says, would he still have had to testify or would he have been able to plead the fifth? That's what he's saying. Simone says, if he did not have immunity? Kayla says, yeah. And Simone says, yes, he could plead the fifth. Copeland, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, it seems like Woody's kind of saying it actually would be in his own best interest to not have immunity, because then he wouldn't have to testify. He could just get up there and plead the fifth. Like, and Kayla says that's what he's trying to say. He's trying to say he didn't ask for this. And Simone says, well, but he doesn't have to ask for it. But I guess the point is they can just give him immunity without, like, with him not even wanting it. Yeah, I mean, they force it on, which they can do. But he doesn't have to ask for it. So now that we have given it to him, because that's on us, so now that we have given it to him, it's an order. He can still choose if this is the road he wants to take, then he'll just stay in custody until the trial is over. And when we say the trial is over, every last defendant has been tried, not just these 6, these other ones too. Yeah, that's like one of the craziest parts about this case, is that this never-ending marathon of a trial is going to be repeated for all these defendants who have been severed. That's just nuts. But save up your questions, guys. I'm looking forward to answering some when we get through here. But yeah, so Simone says, and when we say the trial is over, every last defendant has been tried, and not just these 6, the other ones too. And Woody says, I did longer time. I'm actually not sure about that. We'll see, but that's a funny response. Simone says, all right, Mr. Copeland, I'm telling you that you are literally immune from prosecution from everything else you might say. That's that. So the choice is always up to you, but we wanted to put on the record, the state does not want you in custody. What the state would like to do is purge yourself from, and what he says, what purge yourself mean? Hilton says, meaning that you are no longer, like, rid yourself. I'll help her out there. Rid yourself. Strip yourself of immunity. Yeah. Meaning that we are no longer in custody. That you are no longer in custody, and the way that you purge yourself is to testify. She didn't really tell him what that was. And that is kind of how it happens. And that is what the state wants you to do. We don't want you in custody. I can't say that any other different way, but we don't want you in custody. The only thing that's holding you is you refusing to testify. So if you have any questions, any other questions, basically if you invoke the fifth, and what he says, that was Judge Glanville just now, what he says, I don't know what's going on. I don't trust nobody. I trust her word, but I don't know what's going on, Your Honor. Simone says, this is your insurance. I don't know if you want to break that down to him. Ms. Bumpus says, well, he doesn't want that. And Glanville says, but he's been given it. See, that's the challenge, Mr. Copeland, is that if they didn't give you the immunity, you could invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. But what the state decided is they said your testimony is worth more to them at this point in time, and they really want to know what you have to say. So they have from the state's perspective, they have made a decision to give you immunity so you no longer can invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. You have to testify. So that's the difference in this particular scenario, is that they have taken away, they've purged. Well, you can still invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege. You can still do that, but the consequence of invoking it is you will just remain in custody. So if you testify, you get out of custody and you stay out of custody until you are done. What he says. And then if I don't testify, I have to stay in until when? And Glanville says, until the trial is over, until all the defendants have been. I've got these 6 that we have right now, and then there's another 6. Simone says, no, there's another 12. God. Glanville says that there's another 12 or thereabouts that are still outstanding in various forms or another. What he says, can I speak with her for a second? And Glanville says, yeah, sure. And so they were in they left chambers at 10:17. This is Glanville, Simone, the 2 investigators, and Weaver all left the courtroom. So the transport deputies stayed with Bumpus and I think that's what it means, because yeah, he's in custody, so they wouldn't just leave him in there by himself. But my question is, can I ask you a question? This is after it resumes at 10:33, after a 16-minute private meeting between Kayla and Kenny and Woody. It says, so my question is, so what was I just asking her? Was, if you ask me a question and you feel and I was lying about it, you will lock me back up? Simone says, no. If you are saying, you say, I didn't talk to Demikhian. Well, no, I can't talk about that because the judge is in here. I'm a little confused here. You are asking, for example, if you said before that the sky is blue, and I asked you on the stand, what color is the sky? And you say, I said it was red. I'm going to say, no, back before you said it was blue. Is that what you were trying to ask me? Kayla says, uh-huh. So explain the independent evidence. If he says he did something and you know he's not telling the truth, what happens? Simone says, if he said he did something and he did not do that thing. Kayla says, if you believe that he did not, so if you believe that he's lying about that. Simone says, then no. If he admits to doing something on the stand, and he did not do that thing, I'm going to say, is this the first time you're saying that? It's Simone. And Kayla says, and you have independent evidence to prove it wasn't him, then what? Hilton says, then nothing. What do you mean, and so he will be fine? Yes, but so are you okay with him if he got on the stand and said things that weren't true? No, I want him to tell the truth. What have I always told you? I want you to tell the truth. I don't know what's going to come out of your mouth. I expect you to tell the truth. If you say something that is inconsistent with what you said before, then I'm going to ask about the inconsistencies. But I expect you to tell the truth. What you go on the stand and do, I don't know. I don't know what you were going to do. I want you to tell the truth. But I will tell you, but I will deal with you not, you saying something different in the manner that I normally do. Let's see what we're doing here. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Again, if I'm going to send something out on legalaffairsandtrials.com with a link to the full transcript and some highlights. If you sign up for my mailing list, you can get it in your inbox. But I'll keep going through. We're on 38 of 56. Copeland says, if I'm saying something different, right? So when the police question me, they done question me every time they lock me up. I don't know how many times that was. I done told them whatever reason, whatever different story I could think of to try to finesse my way out of the situation. I don't recall what I done told them. Ms. Hilton. Okay, so you can say, I don't recall. This is how that works. Excuse me. Oh, man. I don't recall. And he can say that to every single question. Simone said, Kayla asked, and he can say that to every single question. Simone says, I would hope that that is not the truth, because I think there are some things you do recall and some things you don't. But the things you don't recall, you don't recall. And then I will go through my process of what I do. You can talk to him about what impeachment is. That won't get you locked up. Impeachment will not get you locked up. You can talk to him about what impeachment is. If he says, I don't recall. Woody says, what will get me locked up? And Simone says, what did I tell you? Woody says, I don't know. God, this whole thing, it's just memories of anybody's ever watched them in court. They talk forever and they start talking in circles and stuff. It's just like, oh, what a little nightmare. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I see all the gifts and stuff. The Gigi is she has the number 3 gifter badge. Who's the number 1? I gotta say hi. Thank you guys so much for all the love on here. But what you said on Friday. Oh yeah. So Woody says, what will get me locked up? What did I tell you? I don't know. Simone says, what you did on Friday? I plead the 5th. If the court instructs you, Woody says, so the only thing that gets me locked up is pleading the 5th? Kayla says, yes. The court instructs you, and this is Simone, the court instructs you, you need to answer the question. You say again, I plead the 5th. Again, that's what's going to get you locked up. But if you answer the question, that will not get you locked up. Woody says, so if you don't want me in jail, why don't you just let me go after the trial over with? Simone says, you are in jail because you are not answering the questions. Glanville says, because you have been given immunity. Simone says, because you have been given immunity. You are only in jail because you got up here. And Woody says, well, what about this? I answer the questions, you take away immunity, I answer the questions, and I plead the 5th. And Simone says, no. Woody says, to questions that I feel incriminate me. Like, meaning that he would plead the 5th to questions he feels incriminates me. And Simone says, but then that's, Woody says, I won't plead the 5th to things that don't incriminate me. And this is Judge Glanville. He says, the state can still give you immunity. They can give immunity to whoever they want, okay? And they can make that choice. I don't even make that choice. So if they, like I said earlier, they want your testimony, they figure it's that the jury needs to hear what you have to say is good, bad, or indifferent. And what Miss Hilton is telling you is just tell the truth as you know it and let her worry about it. I mean, even though you may have said different versions of whatever, that's for impeachment. That's not going to get you in trouble. What will get you in trouble is you just invoking your 5th Amendment privilege because you have been given immunity. Or as Miss Love said this morning, remember, Miss Love said that if you overtly lie about something, like, thank you, whoever just put the hat on me in TikTok. Or as Miss Love said this morning, remember, Miss Love said if you overtly lie about something, like if you tell a bold-faced lie, then they can indict you on that particular charge. I mean, that's a particular false statement. I think this kind of blows all the people out of the water, or like contradicts people who are saying that they told Woody he could just lie and get away with it on the stand. It's like there are some implications on that, but that is a pretty clear statement from Glanville repeating to DA Love's statement that, like, no, he can't just get up there on the stand and like lie. And if he just blatantly perjures himself, there could be consequences for that. But anyway, that's what they're going to do. Woody says that's what they're going to do. And Kayla says, this is what I was saying. You will be right back here. Simone says, but if you say something that you know you did not do, like you admit to something you know you did not do, whatever you, Woody says, like murder don't have like no statute of limitations, right? And Simone says, but if you didn't do it, I can't charge you with something you didn't do because I don't have any other evidence but you saying it. And Woody says, but y'all don't like, and Kayla interjects and says, you can charge him with false statements and he will be back in jail. This is what I'm trying to say. Simone says, but if I know that you are lying about that, I do not intend to do that. If I know that you are lying about that, I do not intend to do that. I know right now he's lying. I know he's lying. I'm not going to charge you because I don't know your reason for doing that. Yeah, the whole idea that you have to prove intent or something. But I'm not going to charge you when I know you didn't do that, when I know you didn't do what you were trying to say you did now. And that can be part of this. I know you didn't do it. Woody says, but it's up to the judge to do that. Simone says, no, it's up to the state to bring charges. And Glanville says, I don't have anything to do with that. Simone says, he has nothing to do with bringing charges. That's up to the state of Georgia. Woody says, can I talk to my family? And I will make my decision right after I hang up the phone. Kayla says, he's saying he hasn't been able to speak to anybody. Simone says, his sister just called us. Woody says, y'all done me wrong. Y'all just hold me in jail. Don't get me no PIN number, no nothing. Simone says, we have no knowledge. We did not know that you, Kayla says, he hasn't been able to do anything, speak to anyone. And Woody says, the jail system down, but y'all still putting people in. Woody's hilarious. The jail system down, but y'all still putting people in. Simone says, that part I don't know. I know we have been in communication with your sister. Your sister actually texted Miss Lane's some DA's office employee, I'm assuming, to make sure you were okay. We told her we physically had laid eyes on you. I'll leave that up to the sheriffs. I don't know. Brief pause. Thank you so much, Gigi, for the flowers. So what do you think she's saying? This is Woody again. Simone says, I can tell you right now. Woody says, I'm talking about that locking me back up. Simone says, we would have to bring charges. There would be no incentive. Woody says, y'all will. Oh, he's saying like if I agree to testify, like what could get him locked back up again? And she says, they would have to bring charges against him. And he's like, okay, you guys are going to do that. And she's like, we've already had this discussion. Woody says, look, what you did to me, you waited until Friday and did this. I done told you every day before Friday came that I was pleading the fifth. Simone says, no, you did not. As a matter of fact, our last, the court, Mr. Copeland, let's see if we can get beyond this, okay? Beyond what your concern is. God, you should do this in court more often. If this is in court, Glanville always just lets them talk in circles and just repeat themselves forever. But Glanville says, you could have invoked the Fifth Amendment privilege. The state could have turned around and said, stop. Had me go ahead and filed that motion and given you immunity. It was going to, they make that decision. They decided to make it on Friday. But even if you would have been more comfortable testifying and invoking your Fifth Amendment privilege, they could decide you as a witness. They want your testimony more than they do by invoking your Fifth Amendment privilege, so they give you immunity. They gave you immunity, so you've got to testify truthfully as to what your knowledge of the particular incident is. So they would have done that anyway. Even if they put you on the stand, they would have said stop and gone ahead and given you immunity. They would have done that. And I can see it. I know earlier in the thing I was like, it almost just seems like they should have just done this in open court. All this talk about like immunity. I've always been that this is, well, definitely not in front of the jury, but I frankly can see, I could name some judges who I've covered over the years who I could see holding an ex parte like this for something like this. Like it's unusual, but I don't know. I feel like in the end, there's just going to be other issues that get this whole thing overturned if there is a conviction that they appeal, but we'll see. This is Glanville again. So if they were going to, they would have done that anyway. Even if they put you on the stand, they would have said stop and gone ahead and given you immunity. They would have done that. What he says, so can I get in some type of writing that if I was to testify, that if she feels as in I lied about anything, that they won't lock me back up? Glanville says, let me have that, Miss Bumpus. Miss Bumpus, Kayla hands document to the judge. There's a brief pause. Glanville says, Mr. Copeland, on page 2 of the order pursuant to This is state law, Georgia State Law 24-5-507. However, no testimony given by Mr. Copeland as required under this order, or any information directly or indirectly derived from the testimony of Kenneth Copeland given by Kenneth Copeland as required under this order shall be used against said Kenneth Copeland in any proceeding or prosecution for a crime or offense concerning what he testifies under this order. Okay, so you testify about some aggravated assault or murder. They can't prosecute you on it because that is what it says on the order. This is Glanville explaining what he just read to Woody. Okay, the only thing that will get you in trouble is the next little paragraph. And he reads it. Kenneth Copeland shall be subject to prosecution or to penalty or forfeiture for any perjury, false swearing, or contempt committed in testifying or failing to testify in accordance with this order. However, it is ordered that Kenneth Copeland shall not be required to produce evidence that can be used in any other court in this state, the United States, or any other state. So basically, if you commit perjury, false swearing, or contempt swearing and testifying, that means if you just invoke your Fifth Amendment privilege or failing to testify, you say, I'm not going to testify. All right, this is Judge Glanville. So the only two real things you can kind of get in trouble for are perjury and false swearing, as long as you tell the truth. Now, as Ms. Hilton and Ms. Bumpus said earlier, you may have told or been asked about situations over and over again that they may have changed. What the state is asking you to do is tell the version that really is the truth. If they want to impeach you, they can do that. Or if the other side wants to impeach you, you can do that. You won't get in trouble for that. And because I often see that in trials, like if somebody brings in impeachment evidence, first of all, I mean, the judge decide what's impeachment evidence and what goes through, but I kind of think it's ultimately just up to the jury to decide whether it actually impeached the testimony. So sometimes people will ask, well, if they had their testimony impeached like that, like could they get charged with perjury? And it's like, no, and that's just what they're telling him right here, that just kind of impeachment stuff that comes in isn't going to get him charged with perjury. But they're not just completely saying that he can just get up on the stand and lie and not face any consequences. But she said, Woody says, but she said I can purge myself though. And Simone says, no, we're saying two different things. Sorry. Oh, it's because she never told him in the beginning what purge actually meant. And she should stop using the word purge and just say rid, R-I-D, just say rid yourself of it, because they're too much alike. So he was thinking that purge and perjury were the same thing. Don't really blame him. But she said, we're saying two different things. Sorry. Perjury is if you get on the stand and you just say a bold-faced lie, just something that is just wrong. Say you say, I did something, and all the other times you have said, I have not done it. And really, while it's perjury, it's really just an inconsistent statement. Like if you get on the stand and say, I did X, but in 2015 you said, I never did X. This is what I'm going to impeach. I'm going to impeach you on everything you said in 2015, meaning I'm going to say, okay, today you said I did X, but in 2015, Lieutenant Dean enters the chambers. I wonder who Lieutenant Dean is. Just another overpaid sheriff's guy walking around the courthouse. Oh, Lieutenant Dean, he has a role to play here. He says, we have a security issue. We need to stop for a minute. Oh man, this is going to be like the biggest cliffhanger intrigue of this whole transcript. I bet they don't tell us what this is. Stop for a second, please. Oh, it was 2 minutes. Judge Glanville and Lieutenant Dean exited chambers at 10:45 a.m. Judge Glanville returned to chambers at 10:47 a.m. And the phantom Lieutenant Dean disappeared from our lives forever. Miss Hilton, I don't know what was told to you on Friday. I have no reason to want you in prison. You have spent enough time in prison for YSL, period. So if you're a reporter, which I'm going to do, make some quotes about this, there's a quote for you. You have spent enough time in prison for YSL, period. So why would I want that for you? That doesn't make no sense. I said it to you before, and I will say it to you again in front of all these people. It makes no sense. Woody says, you just said I'm going to have to stay in jail until the last. Simone says, if you don't testify, get this part through your head. If you don't testify, this is the only thing that is holding you. That is literally the only thing holding you right now is the fact that you keep saying, I'm not going to testify. Well, you haven't said it today. I'm not testifying. I plead the fifth. If you get up there and I want you to tell the truth. Like I said before, if you don't recall certain things, you can say you don't recall. That's fine. I want you to tell the truth. I don't expect you to remember every single detail from 2015. I just don't. No one here does. But what I do expect for you to answer is questions so we can get through this. So you can go home, be with your baby for her birthday, see those dogs deliver their puppies, get your pets spayed and neutered, people. There are enough dogs in the world. Go talk with your nephews and do all these other things. Woody's response to all that is, how do you know about my dogs? And Simone says, because you told me. And Woody says, okay. And Kayla says, what's wrong? Woody says, I'm stressing at another level. Like, Kayla says, I mean, I'm saying, Woody says, I'm weak. Man, I'm not playing. I'm dead serious, man. Like, Simone says, this is what our position is. We do not want him in custody. How do you know about my dogs? We want him to tell the truth. We want him to testify. That's what will get him out of jail. And, we have to make, if he decides in 2 weeks he wants to testify, then what? That's Kayla asking. If he wants to stay in jail for 2 weeks, this is Simone, then I don't know why you would want to stay in jail for 2 weeks. I have no idea. He just feels like he's under a lot of pressure right this second, Kayla says. Woody says, even at the jail, they're just, you can't give me house arrest? Simone says, no, you can go home by taking the stand and testifying. That's what you, Glanville, and come back tomorrow. Hilton, we keep on saying yet, but there is no crime. We keep on saying yet. I don't know who is telling you about a crime. There is no crime. You have done nothing wrong except for not. So why am I in jail then? I told you that like 1,000 times at this point, dude. Because you aren't testifying, Simone answers. But that ain't nothing wrong. It's not a crime. What he says, it's not a crime, but you're in civil contempt. Two things. And that's the thing, like the whole idea, like they're trying to coerce his testimony. Like coerce, that actually is, of course, what they're doing. That's what the civil contempt charge is. I think they even use the word coerce when they're talking about civil contempt. That the whole point of a civil contempt charge is to coerce somebody to do something. Like he's in jail until he decides to testify. It's not a crime that you're in civil contempt, but it's not a crime, but you're in civil contempt, it says. Glanville says two things. Because you invoked your privilege after you have been given immunity, that is why you are in custody, because you get out by testifying. So you testify, you get out. That's why I was going to why I brought you earlier today, to just inquire about that. You can remain and hold your position of invoking the fifth or not testifying, but you go back to prison or you go back to jail, because that's, Copeland says, you can't sentence me. And Kayla says, there's no sentence. Glanville, there is no sentence. The contempt is compliance. They want your testimony. That is all they want, whatever that may be. And Woody says, I don't know what it is, Your Honor. Simone says, solicits. You are in jail for failing to testify. Glanville says, failing to testify. Simone says, but for nothing else. There is no crime. You ain't done nothing. I don't know if people are telling you that they are going to charge you with nothing. We are not charging you. The state charges you. There's nothing we're charging you with. You are only in custody because you have decided not to testify. That is it. Once you decide to testify, remember that word you were talking about, purge. Glanville said that, and Woody says, Glanville says, okay, you can purge right now. Purge. Get yourself out of jail just by testifying. I can purge and get out of jail. Stop using the word purge. They're just like intentionally making this confusing for him. And Copeland says, I can purge and get out of jail. And Glanville says, yes, just by testifying. And Simone says, not perjury. Stop using the word purge. The court, purge, P-U-R-G, meaning you can get out of jail. You can get out of jail, out of custody, just by testifying. They're still not properly defining it. This is frustrating. And what about the other one, the other word, perjury? Glanville, that's different. Simone says that's different. God, they create more problems for themselves just by doing this. The court, that's a different word, okay? Woody says, that can get me back in jail. That's funny. So he's being told purge is getting out of jail, but perjury will get him in jail. Just stop saying the word purge, guys. It's not even a good word. That can get me back in jail? Simone says yes. Glanville says perjury is, Simone says it's not, what you were saying is not perjury. What you were saying is what we call a prior inconsistent statement. Your example that you gave me, what if I said I did something and I know you didn't do it, and you said before you didn't do it? That's not perjury. That is a prior inconsistent statement. Kayla says, you've got to make a decision. So if he starts testifying today, is he going to go home today? Simone says he should, so long as he remains. But if you get up there and be like, if you get to testifying and then we get into it and you start saying, I plead the fifth, we're going to be back here again. Kayla says, but if he says he don't recall to everything, he'll be okay. Simone says, I'm not advising that, but so long as he answers the questions, that's fine. So long as he... Woody interjects and he says, I did these crimes. I'm telling you that. Simone says, okay, I don't know what you're talking about, but, and Kayla, I think, are you saying you want to get up there on the stand and say something? Copeland, no response. Kayla said, did we find out if he could talk to his family? No. Brief pause. I mean, if it's okay, we got the sister's number. Copeland, as my attorney, you gotta, Simone says, if y'all want to talk, let me go somewhere where I can't hear you. The judge is over there, so speak low so he doesn't hear you. The Judge Glanville says, hold on. Handed a document to Bumpus, exited chambers with Simone, the investigators, the court reporter. So from 10:53 to 11:28, there was a pause, and it was Kayla and Woody talking alone. And the court says, okay, all right, Mr. Copeland, have you had an opportunity to talk with Mr. Bumpus, your lawyer, and Ms. Hilton, the state's counsel? Have you got any other questions? Mr. Copeland says, no, Your Honor. Is it your desire to give testimony today? Yes, sir. Okay, all right then. So y'all have some clothes for him? Ms. Hilton, I don't know. Let me go take a look. And here's the best part of the whole transcript. What size are you? Mr. Copeland says, I can't hear you. Simone says, what size are you? Little Woody answers, little. We had a large jacket for him on Friday. This is the investigator who was accused of sex harassment. Accused. And if you read the text message, he clearly did it with bros, you know. Simone responds, you had a jacket for him? The investigator says, yes. Oh, but he can't wear a large, Simone says. What is your waist size? 34? Copeland says 32. Chest, what are you? 34, 36? That was Glanville. Simone says probably 36. Copeland says, not my chest. What do you mean? Glanville, size. What size are you? Small or medium? Simone asks. Woody says small or medium. Glanville, they're going to try to get you some clothes so you don't have to testify wearing that jail uniform, okay? Mr. Copeland, y'all don't want to show the people how y'all did me. Y'all don't want to show the people how y'all did me. The court, look, if we can't find clothes, then you may have until tomorrow. I prefer to go in like this, Copeland says. Okay, yeah, he doesn't care. He'll go in jail garb. I understand what your preference is. Nah, don't hide it, Woody says. Kayla, can you make him put on clothes? Simone, no. I want to go in there like this, Woody says. Simone, fine with me. Judge Glanville, all right, okay. Woody says, you ain't going to try and lock me back up for this? Simone says, so long as you testify, you will get an order to get you released. Kayla says, okay, today. Glanville, whose copy is this? Simone, you've got to make sure you come back now. I want to be real clear. Woody says, when have I ever ran? And Simone says, you have not. That's the only thing. You have not. Whose copy is this? Judge Glanville asks. Simone, that was ours. You want a copy, you can take it. I think this is immunity thing they're going through. Okay, off the record. Okay, you know whose name was never mentioned in this entire transcript? Seriously, what did we not hear? Donovan Thomas. This whole thing about how he confessed to, and that's what's really going to screw them over, is there were clearly some exaggerations and, a game of telephone in what was actually said here. And I mean, Donovan Thomas wasn't even mentioned in here. So the idea that and that's what's going to screw him over is the judge who ultimately decides the recusal motion is going to be reading the statements about what supposedly was said at the ex parte and kind of seeing that it doesn't quite match up with what happened. And that right there, I think, will be fatal. Even if they didn't have that, I don't think he'd be recused. But I mean, Donovan Thomas was never even mentioned in this whole thing. And Steele said in open court that he heard that, he confessed to Donovan Thomas's murder, and that he said that he would get up there and say that he did it. Or, I mean, there was just all this stuff that we just don't see in there. But it's going to be really interesting to me to see how they incorporate this into cross-examination, because I mean they've got it now. It's all public. There's nothing redacted in there. So I mean I can see some serious questions about it. But in the end, I mean, Woody has not really said anything incriminating in his statements, and he's just gone up there and said that he lied about everything. It's just, what a dumb case. I mean, their entire case just seems completely flimsy. Like, even if he had gone up there and testified how they wanted him to, I don't think it would be enough to really like sustain an entire RICO case. But it's hilarious that he just ended up doing what all the other witnesses have done, like the other non-cop witnesses have done, and denied everything. It's like they were so desperate to get him on the stand. It's like, why? It's not like he even helped you guys. But yeah, so I mean, for people who are just catching in, I did a lie. There's been a lot going on. Yeah, I mean, he said I did all those crimes, but it's like nobody ever really, like, I don't know. We did not quite get the, I killed Donovan Thomas or I murdered Donovan Thomas. It's not quite that. I'm just saying that's going to be a problem when they're reading especially when the judge is reading the recusal motion, and he's reading the synopsis of the ex parte, and then he reads the transcript. I just don't think Judge Glanville is ever going to like leave the case. And well, I think this will all definitely be mentioned in the appeal. If there is eventually a conviction and judgment, I think there are going to be a lot of other issues that end up overturning everything then that this ex parte and everything that happened with